How's it going, guys? It's Firefly and welcome back to my channel. In this video I wanted to take a look at the most important stuff that's coming in Phase 6 and how they will most likely shake up Snowrunner in a big way. I'm making this video now because a new update recently arrived on the public test version of the game, and it actually includes Phase 6 content. You can find the full patch notes of this test server update in the description below. I'm only going to cover the biggest changes in this video, and I'm very excited to do so because I think most of these are very welcome additions to the game, and the devs are really hitting the mark with this update. With that said, let's actually take a look. First and foremost, we are getting a medium logging frame add-on, which will allow us to carry medium logs on the frame of trucks other than the Cat 745C. Hallelujah. About time, guys. They finally did it. I'm sure you guys are as happy as I am about this. The lack of this add-on has puzzled and frustrated a lot of players since launch. It's always been very weird that if you used anything other than the 745C to transport medium logs, you had to use the log trailer before you could really make any good use of the free frame space on your truck. Gone are those days, and I couldn't be happier. So what does this mean for logging? Well, it means that you can now use trucks that are faster, more agile, smaller, or more fuel efficient than the 745C to transport medium logs, which in and of itself is good news, but on top of that, it also means that you can transport 2 loads of medium logs at once by using the frame add-on plus a trailer. Now, if you think about this even for a moment, across the entire game, this is going to make life way easier when it comes to logging because you can now have hauling setups that are way more efficient than before. Prior to having this add-on, the most amount of loads that a single player can transport at once was 2. You could drive a 745C and winch a second 745C behind you. You could pull a log trailer and winch a second log trailer behind you, or you could have a 745C winch a truck with a log trailer or vice versa, but whatever you did, you topped out at 2 loads per trip. Now that the medium logging frame is a thing, you can move 2 loads without having to winch anything, which allows you to drive much faster and much safer with the same 2 loads. If you do winch a second truck or a second trailer, you can move 3 loads at once, and if you winch a second truck with a second trailer, you can move 4 loads of medium logs at once. So if you remember those logging contracts that makes you deliver, say, 6 loads of medium logs to the same place, well, it used to be at least 3 very slow trips. Now you can do something like a slow trip of 4 loads, followed by a much faster trip of 2 using something like an Azov 5319 with a log trailer, which is a way faster method of moving 2 loads of medium logs than a 745C winching another 745C. So it's 2 trips now, and the second one could be way faster than what we're used to. So overall, I think the medium logging frame is a fantastic addition, and I look forward to seeing how this affects the way players look at logging. I've always looked at logging as cool, but unnecessarily tedious, and this new add-on could make it a lot less so. Up next, we're getting a new truck that's technically a new truck, but not really. We are getting the ANK Mk38 Civilian, which as far as I can tell is just the existing ANK with different add-ons. Everything else looks exactly the same, except the suspension, which might be tuned differently. I haven't checked the XML files yet. This civilian ANK has access to the high saddle, low saddle, fuel tank, and van body add-ons. It's still missing a lot of add-ons though, like cranes, the maintenance frame, and specialty things like the seismic vibrator. And it's also missing both 2-slot beds, so it actually does not overlap in add-on availability with the original ANK. You still need to use the original ANK if you want the 2-slot bed. This is technically a separate truck from the original ANK, so I suppose it will have its own unlock requirements, although I don't think it's going to be a part of the Season 6 DLC though, because the devs supposedly made it accessible to everybody on the test server, not just players with the Year 2 Season Pass. There was also one obscure line in the patch notes that said the original ANK's weight distribution has been tweaked. I have yet to test the ANK on the test server myself, but it's safe to assume that this means they buffed the ANK, if not also by a lot. The ANK was always a fan favorite of many, but I'm sure even the fans would admit that the truck is notoriously jumpy and unstable, especially when equipped with high suspensions. So if the devs did go after the weight distribution, they would have done exactly what the ANK needs. At this point, I think a lot of ANK fans would be overjoyed by this update, since their beloved truck is not only getting a performance buff, but also getting more use cases with the extra add-on options on the Civilian spin-off. Moving on, we're also getting some new upgrades for existing trucks. The Dan 96320 is getting active suspension, which actually lifts up the Dan quite a lot while still keeping it fairly stable. The Dan was always a decent truck, but it was vulnerable to getting wedged on rocks and other objects, and it's easy to see why. It's about the same length as the Azov 73210, but has way fewer wheels to cover all the exposed area on its frame, and on the frame it also has this massive gas tank that likes to catch on to stuff. So I think the active suspension will definitely make a difference. The Dan is already a decent truck, it just has very few use cases, and like most heavy trucks, it fails to do anything meaningfully better than the meta trucks like the Zig 605R or Azov 73210. But I found myself actually doing alright the many times when I specifically chose to use it for variety's sake. The active suspension will probably make it quite a bit better, but it probably won't matter to most players though, since the truck itself doesn't seem to be all that popular. That cannot be said about the next truck that gets a new upgrade though. The Derry Longhorn 4520 is getting a more powerful engine. The Derry 4 would have always been an all-around great truck if it didn't suffer from its one critical handicap. This dedicated semi-truck is stable, agile, and fast on roads. Its one weakness is that it's extremely heavy, but doesn't have an equally powerful engine to pull its own weight. The Derry 4 is much heavier than it looks. It weighs 25 tons, which is actually tied with the likes of the Pacific P12, P16, and Cat 745C. But on the other hand, it somehow shares an engine set with trucks with well under half its weight. This gives it not one of the lowest, but the lowest power-to-weight ratio in the entire game, and makes the truck stall under even the slightest bits of pressure. This new engine upgrade provides it with 23,000 units of torque, which is a pretty big boost from its previous maximum of 192 units. This is a very sizable boost, and while its power-to-weight ratio is still quite low, I think it's safe to say now that the Derry 4's power-to-weight ratio is now merely a weakness and no longer a handicap. This is great news because the Derry 4 always had the potential to be one of the best, if not the best, semi-trucks in the game, and now it has the chance to realize that potential. The game now also has a photo mode, which allows you to take screenshots of the game and fine-tune the way they look before saving. I don't really care about this myself, but I know from the Snowrunner subreddit that a lot of people do. They take their screenshots super delicately, and a lot of their work actually looks really good. I've even considered using some of them as my desktop background. So I can totally see why the devs made this photo mode a thing. The screenshot people are probably going to be quite happy about this. Now onto the Phase 6 region. First of all, the garage is getting some interesting new features. When I first booted up the PTS and landed in Maine, I was definitely surprised to find most of the garage features I'm used to missing. All you can really do at the start is just deploy your truck and leave the garage. Everything else is locked behind contracts, and so is the trailer store. Your trucks don't even get refueled and repaired when you recover, presumably until you've unlocked that feature, which I have yet to do myself. I'm sure this garage shenanigans is going to be a big deal for hard mode players, but if you are a normal mode player, rest assured that you can always just jump to the garage on a different map to do stuff if you end up needing to. The only thing that's actually more than just an inconvenience is the trailer store, because you can't just buy trailers in other regions and bring them over to Maine, which is why it's probably a good idea for normal mode players to prioritize as the contract that unlocks the trailer store. Not only does the trailer store enable you to use trailers, but it's also an infinite resupply point, because you can do the infamous buy-sell trick where you buy a trailer, use the supplies on it, and immediately sell it for the same price. So you can use it to resupply your trucks until you unlock the refuel and repair feature on the garage. Most of the loading zones on the map have limited amounts of cargo, so you'll probably want to spend them wisely, and the trailer store is probably going to be a great investment for the early stage of this region for normal mode players. But I'm sure it's not the only place where you'll be sitting there, weighing the odds, trying to figure out what's the best way to spend the limited cargo you get at different loading zones. Overall, I think this region is going to have quite a bit of gameplay depth when it comes to logistics. From what I can tell so far, the terrain is not that difficult. If you survived Kola Peninsula or Amir, you'll definitely be able to drive here. But the logistics is looking very interesting. Generator crafting zones are also back, along with other types of crafting zones, so expect a lot of crafting, and expect to do a lot of thinking as well if you want to do things efficiently. We're also getting 3 new scout trailers. They currently have no texture, but they do have wheels that we haven't seen before. One of these trailers also appears to have the ability to carry cargo and supplies at the same time, similar to some mod trailers. It already carries a spare wheel, but I'm counting on it being able to carry more supplies than that because it'll probably be necessary to justify its extra length compared to the other 2. I wonder if any of these trailers are actually going to be light enough to use with any scouts other than the International Lodestar and Yar 87 though, which is a problem that the existing scout trailers have. I guess I'll have to wait and see. And last but not least, aside from the civilian ANK, we're also going to get 2 actually new trucks. One of them is going to be a 6-wheel truck and the other will be a log forwarder. We know that there's going to be a new 6-wheel truck because the patch notes mentioned a powerful 6-wheeler, and one of the developers implicitly confirmed on Discord that it's very much not the civilian ANK. I still have no idea which truck this is going to be though. And we also know that there's going to be a log forwarder because the devs mentioned an agile forestry vehicle. And on the first map in the new region, there's an empty task next to a swamp with the text forwarder_01 listed as one of its rewards, a reference to a vehicle that currently doesn't exist. So we can basically assume that this vehicle will be a log forwarder, and the unlock requirement will be to pull it out of this swamp, even though I still have no idea which exact vehicle it's actually going to be. If you don't know what a forwarder is, it's a type of off-road vehicle used to pick up logs directly from the ground and move them or forward them to somewhere more accessible. This is interesting in the context of Snowrunner because this designation requires a logging crane and logging frame. So whichever actual vehicle this is going to be, we know that it's going to be able to carry a logging crane plus a logging frame at the same time. If you look up forwarder on Google Images right now, all of them have a crane and carrying frame on them. This role is actually a vacuum in the current version of Snowrunner because none of the trucks can currently do a crane and frame at the same time for short or medium logs, except the long Paystar, which can only do this for short logs. The forwarder will most likely be able to do this for shorts and mediums, and it'll probably also have much better off-road performance as well. Given the nature of this type of vehicle, it will most likely have access to MSH super heavy mud tires or custom tires instead of regular truck tires, which would put it heads and shoulders above most trucks when it comes to deep mud and snow, and in the same class as the likes of the 745C and Kolobs. But the devs also said that it's going to be agile. I guess we'll have to wait and see what this thing is actually about once it actually comes out, but I'm very happy to know that it will most likely have an ironclad use case and top tier off-road performance. That's about it for this video, guys. I hope you appreciate this information, and I hope you are as excited as I am about the upcoming Phase 6 content. If you like this video, please also let YouTube know that by hitting the like button down below. I would be very grateful for that, as doing so helps this video get found. If you would like to see more informative Snowrunner content, you can also hit the subscribe button on my channel. And last but not least, I wish you all a fantastic day.